What do iced matcha lattes, thrifted Prada bags, and maxed out credit cards all have in common? They're not just trendy lifestyle choices. They're symbols of a generation performing wealth while secretly scraping by. Gen Z, particularly young women, are curating aesthetics that scream luxury, designer dupes, glossy skincare routines, minimalist neutrals, and perfectly filtered day-in-the-life vlogs. But what's hidden behind that polished Instagram grid is an uncomfortable truth. Many of these same women are living paycheck to paycheck, trapped in cycles of debt, and emotionally burnt out from chasing an image they can't afford. This cultural paradox is being called luxury poverty, a term that sounds like an oxymoron, but perfectly captures the tension of trying to look rich in a time when actual financial stability feels more elusive than ever. But here's the thing, this isn't new. Throughout history, women have used appearance as a form of survival, dressing up, performing affluence, and constructing identities that help them navigate patriarchal systems stacked against them. From powdered wig courtesans of the 18th century France to jazz-aged flappers in thrifted silk, the illusion of wealth has always been a tool, sometimes empowering, often exhausting. In today's video, we're going to unravel this contradiction. Why is Gen Z investing in aesthetic affluence over actual security? How did social media turn luxury into a personal trait? And what can we learn by tracing this performance of wealth through history? Let's take a deeper look into the curated chaos of living luxury broke, and what it reveals about class, capitalism, and modern womanhood. Chapter 1. The Rise of Aesthetic Affluence. On TikTok, a typical day in the life of a Gen Z woman might begin with the satisfying clink of a glass straw in a mason jar filled with a bright green smoothie, followed by a Pilates class and a matching athleisure set, and a slow-motion shot of dewy skin receiving a $70 serum. The lighting is warm, the background is minimalist but stylish, and the aesthetic screams wealth, but in a way that feels casual, even accidental. It's an aspirational softness, not loud or showy, but deeply intentional. Yet, when you pull back the curtain, the illusion starts to unravel. Surveys show that over 60% of Gen Z lives paycheck to paycheck, and nearly half report experiencing financial anxiety on a regular basis. Many of the women creating or consuming this content are working multiple jobs, freelancing, or relying on student loans and credit cards just to maintain the lifestyles that they broadcast online. Apps like Klarna and Afterpay have normalized a new kind of consumer debt, where $300 shopping hauls can be split into manageable $25 chunks, masking the cumulative cost of curating a life that looks luxurious but isn't financially sustainable. This paradox has come to be known as luxury poverty, a cultural oxymoron that captures the emotional and economic dissonance of looking rich while being broke. Unlike millennials, who often aspired to own homes or build stable careers, Gen Z is growing up in an economy where those goals feel out of reach. In the absence of traditional security, many are finding validation through visibility. If you can't afford a down payment, maybe you can still afford a Dior lip oil and post about it online. If you can't afford your dream home, you can still rent a white-walled apartment that photographs well. In this environment, wealth is no longer defined by assets. It's defined by aesthetics. Curated lifestyle feeds, matching lounge sets, skincare fridges, and neutral tone home decor, and the occasional designer bag all contribute to a visual narrative of success. But it's a narrative that often depends on performance over reality. It's not about looking rich, it's about looking like you're winning. And this isn't just vanity. For many women, particularly those working in fashion, beauty, media, or other hyper-visual industries, aesthetic affluence becomes a form of professional armor. In competitive spaces where image is currency, looking the part can be part of the difference between getting a job or not. A polished feed can land a brand deal. A certain look can signal to potential collaborators or even employers that you get it. Even outside of those fields, there's an unspoken pressure for women to appear put together, minimal chic, an aesthetic that quietly implies control, competence, and class. But here's the deeper irony. This aesthetic is incredibly expensive to maintain. Even minimalism has a price tag. The clean girl look may seem effortless, but it's often built on a rotating cast of beauty products, curated wardrobes, and rituals of consumption, weekly salon appointments, $10 oat milk lattes. or the constant pressure to have the right bag, the right supplements, the right lifestyle. And unlike previous generations who may have invested in a few key long-lasting pieces, Gen Z's version of luxury is more fluid and fast-paced, driven by trends that change overnight, often influenced by social media algorithms that reward novelty and aspirational content. It's worth noting that aesthetic affluence is not just a product of consumerism, it's a product of survival. When society devalues women unless they're visually appealing, put together, and on brand, the performance of wealth becomes a form of self-preservation. We've been taught that looking successful is almost as good as being successful, and sometimes it's the only way to access opportunity, respect, and even safety. And this isn't new, but it's more visual, more accelerated, and more monetized than ever before. On top of this, social media has blurred the line between lifestyle and labor. Many young women are not just curating their lives for fun, they're building personal brands, side hustles, and small businesses. But even those who don't identify as influencers often feel residual pressure of influencer culture. The algorithm doesn't reward authenticity as much as it rewards aspirational relatability. You're expected to be real, but still pretty. Still polished, still performing a version of success that's consumable. And what does that do to us long term? It breeds anxiety, burnout, and a constant feeling of not being enough. Because no matter how good the photo looks, there's always someone richer, thinner, more minimalist, more aesthetically aligned. Someone you now feel you need to keep up with, even if it means going to debt to do it. And have you ever felt the pressure to look the part, even when your bank account says otherwise? What parts of your life feel real and which parts are you curating for the feed? Chapter 2, History Repeats, Aesthetic Wealth in the Past. The idea of looking rich while living in quiet financial desperation isn't unique to Gen Z. In fact, it's a pattern that repeats throughout history, especially for women. When systems are stacked against you, when upward mobility feels out of reach, or financial independence is rare, appearance becomes one of the few tools left for self-advancement. In a society that historically judged women not by their wealth, but how well they appeared to be a part of it, aesthetic wealth became a subtle yet strategic form of survival. Take 18th century France, for example. Courtesans and actresses, women excluded from polite society and denied from respectability, used fashion as armor. Think powdered wigs, embroidered silks, rouge-stained cheeks, and towering heels. These women weren't necessarily wealthy. Many lived in constant debt, dependent on the favor of aristocratic men, but their ability to appear lavish made them objects of fascination and desire. Their beauty and elegance offered a kind of soft power that could grant them access to money, influence, and temporary security. Appearance for them wasn't just vanity, it was economics. Madame du Barry, mistress to King Louis, is a perfect example. Though born into poverty, she rose to prominence through sheer aesthetic performance, dressing in extravagant gowns and jewels to present herself as someone of value, even if she was constantly navigating the instability of a life tethered to male patronage. Looking expensive wasn't just about luxury, it was about survival in a society that didn't offer many options. Fast forward to the Roaring 20s, and we see another transformation, the flapper. She was rebellious, glamorous, and fiercely modern. With her bobbed hair, beaded dresses, and smudged eyeliner, the flapper represented a rejection of Victorian modesty. But while her image was bold and liberated, her finances were often fragile. Many flappers worked low-paying jobs as secretaries, shopgirls, or dancers. To participate in the culture of nightlife, jazz clubs, and champagne-fueled freedom, they had to stretch their limited incomes towards silk stockings, lipstick, and cocktails. This was the era of installment plans and store credit, which allowed women to buy the illusion of status now and worry about paying for it later. The cost of fitting in with the glamorous city crowd was often more than their wages could afford, but the pressure to look the part outweighed the logic of budgeting. If you dressed like you were part of the elite, maybe you could pass as one. Maybe someone would invite you in. Then came the 1950s, a decade defined by the rise of the American middle class, domestic femininity, and consumerism. Women were expected not just to be wives and mothers, but lifestyle curators. Their kitchens had to sparkle, their lipstick had to match their dress, and their homes needed the latest appliances, furniture, and gadgets. Magazines like Ladies' Home Journal and Good Housekeeping didn't just market products, they marketed an ideal, one where perfection was visual, attainable, and most importantly, purchasable. But this post-war domestic fantasy often came at a price. Behind the smiling housewife was a mounting pile of store credit, personal loans, and financial independence. on a husband's salary, suburban competition bred an aesthetic arms race, who had the best curtains, the most polished lawn, the chicest dress at the PTA meeting. The performance of wealth and femininity became fused. Even those who couldn't truly afford it felt pressured to keep up or risk social exclusion. This pattern reveals something deeper. When women's value is tied to appearance, aesthetic affluence becomes a form of self-protection. In every era, the promise is the same. If you can look wealthy, you might be treated better, given more opportunities, or at the very least left alone. But the promise is often hollow. The energy it takes to maintain the illusion can be emotionally, mentally, and financially exhausting. Consider Marilyn Monroe. To the world, she was the ultimate symbol of opulence, sensuality, and perfection. Diamonds, furs, champagne flutes. She embodied the fantasy of aesthetic wealth. But behind the scenes, Marilyn was often in debt, riddled with anxiety and controlled by a studio system that profited her image while offering her little real power or autonomy. Her beauty was both her ticket to fame and her cage. And that's the trap. Aesthetic wealth may open doors, but it rarely guarantees security. It can make you desirable without making you safe. It can buy you attention without respect. And the more it's performed, the more it is expected. And the harder it becomes to take off the costume. So when we see Gen Z women today going into debt for skincare routines and minimalist wardrobes, we're not seeing something new. We're seeing the next iteration of a very old story, from corsets to contour kits. Women have always been told that looking valuable is just as important, if not more so, than being valued. But is that truly empowerment? Or is it just another cycle of performance dressed up as freedom? And do you see aesthetic wealth as a form of control or expression? Is it empowering or just another expectation to live up to? Chapter 3, the soft life fantasy versus financial reality. If TikTok is any indication, Gen Z is tired, burned out from the hustle culture, emotionally overdrawn from the pandemic, and increasingly disillusioned with the traditional markers of success. In its place, a seductive new lifestyle ideal. The soft life. The soft life is all about gentle luxury. Think slow mornings with silk robes, sunlit rooms filled with eucalyptus candles, afternoon matcha breaks, spa days, and the comfort of passive income trickling in while you journal your manifestations. It's an aesthetic of leisure, calm and control. No more overworking, no more struggle, just clean interiors, luxurious skincare, and living, not surviving. But there's a catch. Living the soft life requires resources, time, money, and a level of economic stability that most Gen Z women simply don't have. And here lies the contradiction. What began as a genuine movement to reject the capitalist hyper-productive grind and reclaim rest as a radical act has since been co-opted by the influencer economy. Now the soft life isn't just a personal philosophy, it's a look, a brand, and increasingly a job. The women we see online living the supposed dream life are often the ones selling it. Influencers who appear to spend their days lounging in curated spaces and glowing in minimalist makeup are frequently working around the clock, from posting branded content and managing affiliate links to filming YouTube videos, editing reels, pitching sponsorships, and navigating the pressures of algorithm performance. The soft life has become its own hustle, and the illusion is powerful. A 30-second TikTok can make soft living seem accessible to anyone, but in reality, those slow mornings are often financed by maxed out credit cards, apps like Klarna and Affirm, or even inherited wealth. For the average Gen Z woman, working retail, freelancing, or jumping between part-time gigs, the soft life is something to be performed, not lived. A curated moment of stillness before logging into another shift. A $45 candle that brings a flicker of peace before checking your overdraft notice. This isn't entirely new. Women have always been expected to perform composure under pressure. Consider the Gibson girl of the late 19th century and early 20th centuries, a cartoon image of the ideal woman. Confident, stylish, and independent, she was strong-willed and elegant, participating in outdoor leisure and modern culture, all while maintaining perfect posture and emotional restraint. But the reality behind the image, Gibson girls often represented upper-middle-class ideals and masked the financial dependency and limited autonomy many women still faced. And fast forward to the 80s, and the image of the working woman had evolved into a high-powered career girl. Think shoulder pads, power suits, heels clicking across the glass office floors. She looked in control, but behind the chic exterior, many of these women were underpaid, overworked, and stuck in patriarchal workplace culture that demanded they act like men but still look like women. Burnout was inevitable, but looking polished was non-negotiable. Today's soft girl is a spiritual descendant of both. She's meant to be emotionally intelligent, physically radiant, financially secure, and spiritually balanced, all while filming her life for public consumption. And that's the exhausting part. The soft life isn't soft if you're constantly laboring to maintain its aesthetic. Pop culture has embraced the fantasy too. Look no further than Emily in Paris, a show that perfectly encapsulates the contradictions of modern luxury femininity. Emily is supposed to be a junior marketing professional, yet she wears head-to-toe couture, attends lavish events nightly, and somehow maintains a dreamy apartment in one of the world's most expensive cities. She's the soft life embodied constantly in leisure, always dressed to kill, never sweating. It's escapist, sure, but it also reinforces the fantasy that beauty, charm, and just enough branding savvy will effortlessly open doors. But for most women, the soft life doesn't feel aspirational, it feels oppressive. The new standard to live up to, a new way to fall short, and in a world where rest is commodified and peace is marketed through $80 diffusers and coastal grandmother aesthetics, it's no surprise that many Gen Z women are starting to feel more pressure than peace. If you're not constantly exfoliated, well-read, organized, and moisturized, you're failing at softness. If your life doesn't fit a Sunday reset reel, is it still worthy? This pressure mirrors the same consumerist trap we've seen across eras. Perform the role to gain the reward. Look serene to be seen as successful. Construct an image of abundance to hide the scarcity gnawing beneath it. And just like with aesthetic affluence, the soft life can become a costume you wear while slowly unraveling inside. But maybe the issue isn't the desire for rest. It's that rest itself has become yet another performance. And ironically, in rejecting hustle culture, we've created a new kind of hustle, one where peace is expensive and leisure is curated for likes. And does a soft life genuinely give you peace, or does it feel like just another trend to keep up with? And can softness exist without the aesthetic? I mean, for me, it seems like another stressful trend. Chapter 4. Social media performance and the capitalist gaze. In the age of social media, everything is content. A $6 coffee isn't a caffeine fix, it's a visual cue and a carefully curated morning routine reel. The thrifted Miu Miu bag isn't just a practical accessory, it's a subtle flex, a cultural signal that you have taste, that you're in the know, that you get it. For Gen Z women, consumption has morphed into identity. You don't just buy things, you brand yourself through them. This new kind of lifestyle branding isn't about ownership in the traditional sense. It's about optics. You don't need a massive closet, just a few Instagrammable pieces. You don't need financial stability, just aesthetic cohesion. The idea is to sell the fantasy of a put-together aspirational life, regardless of what's actually going on behind the screen. And it works. At least in terms of engagement, the algorithm is built to reward this kind of performance. It pushes forward videos that are clean, beautiful, and visually aspirational. Minimalist apartments, soft focus lighting, neutral tone wardrobes, and luxury aesthetics all rise to the top. You're rewarded for your ability to embody a vibe, especially if the vibe looks expensive. Well rested and emotionally balanced. The problem is that maintaining this digital illusion can be financially and emotionally draining. Many Gen Z women, especially those trying to break into creative or content-driven industries, feel the silent pressure to stay aesthetically relevant. Even if they aren't full-time influencers, they know the importance of visual presence. Instagram feeds as portfolios. TikToks as personality pitches, even LinkedIn selfies that look Vogue editorial. The personal has become professional, and the personal brand has become the person. This phenomenon echoes older, deeply gendered expectations, but a new packaging. In the 50s, women were expected to perform domestic perfection. Think polished kitchens, lipsticks while vacuuming, and elaborate jello molds filled dinner parties. Femininity wasn't just innate, it was performed daily for the male gaze. A woman's worth was tied to her ability to make life look effortless and attractive, even if she was exhausted, lonely, or overwhelmed. Now we've traded the male gaze, far more diffuse and insidious. The capitalist gaze is not just one man watching you, it's the algorithm, your followers, your peers, potential employers, maybe even brands. Instead of being judged by husbands or neighbors, you're being judged by engagement metrics, likes, saves, shares, and comments. They all become new markers of approval. And just like the women of the 50s felt the pressure to keep up with the Joneses, Gen Z women now feel the pressure to keep up with the influencers. And it's important to know that the gaze is monetized. The more aspirational your lifestyle looks, the more likely you are to gain traction, followers, and eventually brand partnerships. And so the cycle deepens. Women invest in their aesthetic in hopes of turning it into a luxury income. They buy luxury skincare not because it's always better, but because it photographs beautifully. They stage their lives as relaxed while running on creative burnout. They curate moments of calm for Instagram stories, while their inbox is full of overdue bills. We're seeing a generation that's performing peace under immense pressure. But this is more than just a social media critique. It's a reflection of a deeper societal shift. As work and life have collapsed into one another in the digital age, the self has become the product. Your face is marketing, your home is a set, your daily habits are now potential ad content. This isn't just performance, it's unpaid labor in the attention economy. And here's the irony. The algorithm rewards visibility, but it punishes vulnerability. You can post your oat milk latte, not your therapy bill. You can share your morning affirmation, but not your debt total. You can show the Prada bag you thrifted, but not the shame spiral that came afterwards. The platform wants the illusion of honesty, but still wrapped in a filter. The psychological split between reality and performance breeds a kind of emotional dissonance. You're building a brand while losing touch with your real self. You start to introduce yourself. Is this who I am or just who I'm performing as? Eventually, the curated identity becomes a cage, one that gets harder to maintain the longer you live inside it. And let's be honest, many of us are exhausted, tired of always having to look like we're thriving, tired of performing emotional regulation, aesthetic neutrality, and economic stability all at once. Because in this game, there's no real winning. There's just the next post, the next outfit, the next refresh of your engagement numbers. So the question becomes, who are we really curating our lives for? Is this for ourselves, for a potential sponsor, for a future employer, for a stranger we'll never meet, or just for the comfort of being seen, even if it's through a lens we can no longer control? Have you ever felt like your real life and your online life are two different people? And who do you think is in control, the real you or the curated version of you? Chapter 5, Breaking the Cycle and Reclaiming Value. So where do we go from here? All of the curated reels, the perfectly color-graded day in the life vlogs, and the financial whiplash of trying to maintain an aesthetic, we're starting to see something shift. Slowly but surely, Gen Z women are pushing back. They're tired of pretending, tired of the financial gymnastics required to keep up with appearances, tired of the pressure to monetize every corner of their lives for an audience that doesn't always care. This resistance is taking shape in small but meaningful ways. Budget TikTok, once seen as unglamorous, is gaining traction. Women are openly discussing their rent, their credit card debts, and student loans. What I really spend in a week vlogs show the truth behind brunch dates and Uber rides. Even influencers are trying to peel back the curtain, posting no makeup selfies, showing their cluttered apartments, or admitting they're just burnt out from the very lifestyle they promote. It's not about shaming luxury, it's about reclaiming reality. There's a growing hunger for something more sustainable and more grounded. A life that feels good, not just good looks. This moment isn't isolated. Historically, change has always begun when women collectively reject the roles they are expected to play. In the 20s, the flappers cut their hair, burned their corsets, and danced into the night, not for fun, but as a rebellion against the Victorian restraint. In the 70s, second-wave feminists tossed their bras and questioned the domestic ideals they'd been raised with. And today, Gen Z is quietly, sometimes loudly, calling out the hollow expectations of digital femininity, the pressure to be beautiful, effortless, rich, and relaxed all at once. They're asking, what if we stop performing altogether? What if softness didn't need to be aestheticized? What if success didn't need to be branded? And the answer isn't to reject beauty or luxury altogether. Fashion, beauty, and style have always been tools of expression, resistance, and creativity. They're not inherently toxic. What is toxic is the expectations that we must constantly perform these things for others, that every outfit, every meal, every quiet moment must be photogenic, that we're only worthy if our piece is packaged and profitable. Maybe the rebellion isn't minimalism or maximalism, but mindfulness, choosing when, how, and why we engage with trends, honoring the parts of luxury that bring us genuine joy without falling into the trap of buying them for validation. And let's be honest, the most valuable thing in life often has nothing to do with aesthetics. Time, peace of mind, creative freedom, emotional safety. These are the real luxuries, ones that don't always photograph well but make a life feel full. And that's the future many Gen Z women are carving out, a slower, messier, more honest version of success. One where you can love fashion without going into debt. The truth is, Gen Z didn't invent the illusion of luxury, they inherited it. From powdered courtesans and gilded gowns to flappers dancing through debt and silk dresses. From mid-century housewives performing domestic bliss to Instagram influencers selling peace in a world of fire. Women have always been told that looking successful is just as important as being it. Sometimes it was a survival tactic, other times it was a rebellion. But more often than not, it was a performance built on pressure. What's different now is the pace and the platform. Social media didn't create aesthetic affluence, but it did supercharge it. Suddenly, everyone is both the star and the audience, the brand and the consumer. The line between authentic expression and curated identity is blurrier than ever. But amidst the burnout, debt, and pressure to stay on trend, something else is rising: awareness. We're starting to question the scripts, we're peeling back the filters, and in doing so, we're beginning to reclaim value, not in just terms of what we wear or post, but in how we live. And true luxury might not be about what you own, but what you don't have to prove anymore. So maybe the next era isn't about minimalism or maximalism. Maybe it's about freedom, the freedom to unplug, to be imperfect, to take up space, to monetize every moment of it. Because at the end of the day, the soft life isn't one you perform, it's one you live. So what does real luxury mean to you? Is it time, stillness, creativity? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I mean, I guess they say fake it till you make it. I mean, that phrase has been around for a while. So I think just social media really amplifies all this. And I think it's just way too easy to buy stuff online. Like, you know what I mean? Back in the day, if you had to like physically drive to a store, you'll kind of forget about that impulse, because sometimes I want something, and if I had to actually get in my car and go there, I'd probably think twice and be like, do I really need this? But if I'm just like casually watching TV and something pops in my head, then it's so easy to purchase something. So it's kind of the convenience of it too, and just performing for the feed. So let me know in the comments below, like, do you feel like you can be impulsive in purchasing? Anyways, thanks for watching.